Hey, what's up? This is Twisted. We have 1 week to go before Miss Pandaria comes out, and this vid is just going to be a quick illustration of some stuff that I think you should know going into the next expansion and how you can prepare for it. For one, there's a lot of people out there who are like trying to go real hardcore and they're trying to get the server first. If okay, I'll say this about server first. I really strongly considered doing it. That's why I haven't put up any coverage of me actually playing the beta, is because I don't want people, like I didn't want people to know that I was actually doing the math and figuring out how to get server first. What I found is it's going to be really difficult if you have low survivability to get server first, because the average damage taken that you're going to get above about, it was kind of like level 87, but more like level 88 and 89, like those two levels in particular, just like in Cataclysm, you're really squishy, and if you're just rushing and you don't really have time to keep your gear up to date, so to speak, you're gonna get trounced, basically. So that was one of the hurdles. So one of the things that I would highly recommend is, if you are going for server first, have in your bags a bunch of stamina gems, because, like, yes, you can like keep stacking for damage, and I would also try to shift around some gear pieces, like maybe have a hit trinket or something in your bags that you can put on later so you can stay close to hit capped. But at the higher levels, you are still going to be killing monsters at a fixed rate, and they're going to be doing damage to you at a fixed rate. If your stamina pool is bigger, then those two rates are, like, kind of in my mind a little bit more interchangeable. Like, you will lose some damage, but you will also gain some starting pool health, and you can kind of keep up higher, and most classes have some sort of percentage based health regen or something to keep them up. So that's one thing to consider, is like try to have a bunch of gems for stamina in your bags. And also, speaking of gems, gem prices are going to go like off the rails in this next expansion because transmutes aren't going to be as readily available. So if you have a miner, capitalize on this while you can. Green quality gems, they're going to be like the new standard, in my opinion, for this first tier, maybe, if you're on a budget. And then the blue quality gems are going to be like way expensive. So yeah, look for that. Look for like a potential abuse for that. If you're looking for the best possible stat, yes, you want to go all out and buy the new quality blue gems. But if you're on a budget, compare how much of a stat gain you're getting versus how much the gold is in the current price, and you can budget yourself around gold instead of stats. So that's my advice for the gemming. Also, your potions, like, regardless of how you level, if you're going for server first or if you're just doing it for chill, carry a bunch of flasks on you and elixirs. Those things are going to, like, they're really good for making up for the holes in your gear as you're leveling and all the random stat changes. So yeah, I'd have a few elixirs of hit and like mastery maybe, or something, or some sort of like defensive guardian elixir, and then I'd also have some like just flat int agility whatever flasks in my bags if I were like trying to min max. There was a couple levels that, like, in the end, I actually like would forgo an int flask for the elixirs in the event that I don't die. So that's like some advice. And then the potions. Potions, you don't need to have like a ton of them during a given raid because you can only use them once per encounter, but that resets after every time you leave combat. If you're killing things, you're sporadically leaving combat often, which basically means your potions are turning into a 2-minute cooldown, and you can pretty much, like, if you're going for just train of thought, like, just, I don't know, dive bomb into level 90 as fast as you can, or even if you're just trying to do this the most efficiently as possible, just macro into like one of your primary abilities, macro one of those potions, and then you can pretty much just use it as it's coming off cooldown or whenever it's available. So yeah, definitely pick up like a stack of like volcanic potions or whatever, Tolvir, you get what I'm saying. Just carry around like an entire bag full of those potions while the prices are at an all-time low, and while there's so many herbs on the auction house that you can use to make those potions, because that, like, nobody's going to be farming those. There's not going to be any of those up for sale once Miss Pandaria goes live. They're going to be really rare, so get them now. Also, there's a few, like, with the new changes to glyphs and talents, the thing that you use to swap those in and out of a raid is called Tomb of Clear Mind. Tomb of Clear Mind can be made by inscriptionists, but it's really costly in terms of the ink. So what I'm predicting is that those buy-in scribes will be like sort of really expensive, and they're not part of their leveling curve when they're leveling the profession. So you can buy them right now on a few of the vendors, like right now in the content that's out, like the patch 5.04. You can buy them from their agent vendors. Pick those up while they're at that price, because I just have a feeling they're going to jack the price up to 9 gold, and I think that's an oversight by Blizzard that they're only like a few silver. So get on the tune that's exalted with your guild, and just and find a region vendor that's exalted with that faction, and then just buy like tons and tons and tons of those right now, because I have a feeling that they'll be flipped up in price. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this, but also if you are going for server first, get this macro. This macro is really important because there's a lot of people competing for your server first, and that means that if you're trying to quest, then you don't want to compete with them while questing, and you don't want that to be a factor. Take this macro, spam it on quest givers, and it automates the process of going through questing, and you spend less time dicking around with that and more time out in the world killing things. I will say that for my math, questing, I mean, yeah, it's experience, but you got to look at your experience per hour. I found that like I took a slight hit in experience per hour no matter what, no matter how I spun it doing quests. So questing, it'll slow you down because there's a lot more story quests and mists, and it stretches out the rate at which you're killing things, which is slowing down your experience per hour. So, you know, what I was going to do when I was going to do servers first, so I was just going to kill my way to a zone that had mobs that were 3 levels higher than me, and I was just going to farm mobs that were 3 levels higher than me all the way up until I hit level 90. I revised that strategy eventually because I just couldn't like keep up with the loss of the gear and stats at the higher levels. So kind of like at around level 88, I think, is when I started like looking at quests or in that were just killing quests that you could do and get a bonus to XP and hopefully some gear. So that's something to look at. Now for gear, okay, and the reason I'm not going for server first anymore on my tune, and this is why. There's a lot of quests and they give a lot of reputation, and that reputation is kind of like where you buy all of your Valor gear. And I mean, it would be fun to have the glory of being server first level 90, but I'm more concerned with being server first on all of the new raid encounters because I'm in the guild that is server first. So in my mind, you need to get your reputation as quickly as possible, which means you need to actually settle down and do questing. So if you want all the glory of being the first tune to 90, I mean, go for it. But if you want to get to raiding and you want to do this efficiently, you're going to need to grind with your respective factions. What I would do is look at the faction rewards and see if some of them line up with your professions. If you have professions that you have like good rewards and you kind of want to prioritize that faction over the others, and then if you have like particular pieces of gear that you might be looking at and seeing holes in like terms of drop rate or class clashing in your raid, you should probably look at the loot list by Valor, because you're going to be filling those missing gear pieces with Valor. And also don't forget, all of the crafting gear people can make chests and hands, so if you're looking to craft that, keep that in mind. And then engineers, I'm making the helm. You can make a new epic helm. So don't forget that if you're an engineer, you can have easy access to that. And then also, the new farmable mat in everything is called Spirit of Harmony, and it drops off of any mobs or any node. And if you're an herbalist specifically, when you like actually pick a flower, you gain a bonus to treasure finding, basically, in Pandaria. So, leveling and like thinking of 1-term track mine quests, 1-term track mine I'm killing mobs, or 1-term I'm only dungeon grinding, I would discourage you from doing that. I would try to keep it as well balanced as possible. I'd really try to get out there and like keep up with your professions. If you're a gatherer, keep up with your professions sort of as you level if you're like a crafter, and then I would try to keep my reputation and my quests up. The new dungeons is another thing you should look at. There's some loot lists already data mined on MMO Champ and Wowhead, and some of the rewards are like, they're going to be significant upgrades while compared to your Dragon Soul heroic gear. So, but that doesn't, it is like, in my math at least, depending on the group, it's always almost a loss of experience per hour to be doing dungeons. But you do get the gear, which will in turn give you more experience per hour. So just look at the loot lists and play your dungeons smart. You don't have to do every dungeon on the way to 90, but the ones that have like really clutch upgrades, you might want to see if you could get into that. Um, or like, and if you're going for server first, that means cooperating with like guildies or something, because they're going to be competing with you to get to server first. So yeah, that's everything I could think of off the top of my head. The new scenario is out. Scenarios aren't supposed to be like dungeons. They're basically the replacement for group quests if you used to play back in the day when those were popular. So I wasn't expecting much, but Theramore's out. If you have a tune that's under geared, repeat grind that Theramore scenario and get all the good gear from it. And the heroic mode ratings are kind of like way nerfed and easy right now, especially Dragon Soul. I mean, even if you're not a raider, now is a good time to plug into one of those groups. You can pretty much face roll through it with some really terrible comps and some really bad gameplay, and there's great upgrades in there for gear. So if you can get the gear, it'll start you faster into the new zones, but that gear curve, if you are way behind, you'll catch up by about the second zone. You'll pretty much have the same eye level gear. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for the support, guys.